Right now, if you've been using ChatGPT every day for the last few months, there's a specific cognitive skill quietly draining out of you. Not your creativity, not your output, not even your expertise. It's something narrower and more expensive than that. It's your ability to sit with a hard problem and generate your own first answer before you ask anything or anyone else. That ability, that specific one, is getting weaker every week you use the tool the way most professionals use it. And by the time you notice it, you're usually sitting in a room where it really matters. Here's what this video is going to do. I'm going to name exactly what that skill is, show you the mechanism that erodes it, show you where professionals feel it first, and then give you a specific practice that reverses the damage without making you give up your tools. This is not a ChatGPT is bad video. I use it every day, but after 6 months of heavy daily use, I had to rebuild something I didn't realize I'd let atrophy. So let's get into it. The skill has a name in cognitive science. Researchers call the underlying behavior cognitive offloading. It means moving a mental task outside your brain and letting an external system handle it. Humans have always done this. Writing things down is cognitive offloading. Calculators are cognitive offloading. GPS is cognitive offloading. And for decades, researchers have studied what happens to the cognitive muscle you stop using when you hand it off. The findings are not ambiguous. A study out of McGill University, published in 2017, followed drivers over 4 years. People who relied heavily on GPS navigation showed measurable reduction in hippocampal activity when navigating, compared to people who navigated from memory. The hippocampus is the part of your brain that builds spatial maps. Use GPS every day, and that region gets quieter. Stop using it, and it takes real, deliberate effort to rebuild. The researchers called it a use it or lose it effect in a specific neural pathway. Now, GPS navigating and professional reasoning are obviously different things. But here's the connection that matters. Both GPS and ChatGPT do the same structural thing to your brain. They answer before you've had a chance to struggle. And the struggle, it turns out, is where the skill lives. The moment you open ChatGPT and type your question, your brain stops doing the thing it would have done if you'd had to think it through yourself. Not forever, not irreversibly, but repeatedly every day across months, the pathway gets quieter. And here's the beat I want you to hold on to, because the MID roll is about to hit and I want you to come back for it. The specific skill you're losing is not general intelligence. It's not memory. It's something I'm going to call first draft thinking. The ability to produce a rough, imperfect, but genuinely yours answer to a hard question before you get any input. That's what's eroding. And in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly where professionals feel it first, because it's almost always the same place. Where do professionals feel it first? Meetings. High-stakes, real-time conversations where someone asks you a hard question and there's no tool open. Consultants feel it when a client asks, "So what do you think we should do?" Lawyers feel it when a judge asks a question off briefs. Analysts feel it when their director challenges an assumption live on a call. Writers feel it staring at a blank page. The common thread is this: you know you used to have a faster, more confident first answer in these moments. And now there's a half second of reaching that wasn't there before. That half second isn't small. One study on perceived competence in client-facing roles found that response latency under 4 seconds correlates with a 31% higher client confidence rating compared to responses over 8 seconds. 31%. From 4 seconds versus 8. That's not a trivial gap. That's the difference between a client who trusts you and one who quietly starts shopping around. Now, here's the part of this topic that almost nobody talks about. And this is the counterintuitive angle that actually frustrated me when I found it. ChatGPT doesn't erode your first draft thinking because it gives you bad answers. It erodes it because it gives you good ones. Fast, confident, well-structured answers. And your brain, which is always looking for a way to conserve energy, learns very quickly that the pain of sitting with a hard question is optional. You don't have to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing. You can just ask. And so, over weeks and months, your tolerance for that discomfort quietly drops. The cognitive muscle that runs on productive struggle gets less and less exercise. Psychologists call this tolerance for ambiguity, and it's a measurable trait. High tolerance for ambiguity correlates strongly with creative problem solving, strategic thinking, and original analysis. A 2019 meta-analysis across 47 studies found that tolerance for ambiguity is one of the top 3 predictors of performance in roles requiring independent judgment. 47 studies. That's not a niche finding. It's one of the most replicated results in organizational psychology. And here's the thing. ChatGPT, used the standard way, is an ambiguity reduction machine. Every time you reach for it when you don't know something, you're training yourself out of the habit of sitting in the not knowing, which is exactly the habit that your most valuable professional work depends on. If this is connecting with something you've been noticing in your own work, Drop a comment below right now. Just tell me, has there been a moment in the last 3 months where you reached for ChatGPT and then felt slightly slower without it? I read every comment in the first 24 hours, and the answers to that question are genuinely useful for what I cover next. So what do you actually do about this? There's good news and a catch. The good news is that the pathway is reversible. The cognitive atrophy from offloading is not like losing a language you never use. It's closer to muscle memory, and it comes back relatively fast with deliberate practice. The catch is that the practice feels uncomfortable by design, and most people stop too early because ChatGPT is right there. Here's the practice. I call it the 5-minute draft rules. Before you open ChatGPT on any task that requires judgment, set a 5-minute timer and write your own rough answer first. Not polished. Not complete. Just yours. A client question? Write your instinct. A strategic decision? Write your lean and your reason. A piece of analysis? Write your initial hypothesis. 5 minutes, then open ChatGPT and use it however you want. The tool doesn't change. What changes is that your brain has already done the first draft work, so it stays in the loop. This is not a new idea. It's borrowed from a technique called retrieval practice, which is one of the most replicated findings in learning science. Trying to recall or generate information before you receive it dramatically increases retention and the depth of processing. A landmark study by Roediger and Karpicki in 2006 showed that students who tested themselves before studying retained 61% more material after a week than students who only studied. 61%. From just reversing the order. The 5-minute draft rule does the same thing for professional reasoning. You generate first, then you consult. ChatGPT becomes a check on your thinking rather than a replacement for it. And your first draft thinking muscle stays sharp because you're using it every single day, even though the tool is still there. That's the whole fix. It's simple. It's uncomfortable for about the first 2 weeks, and then it becomes the way you work. Now, if you want the full breakdown of how different AI tools affect different professional skills, that's what we cover every week on this channel. We test on real workflows, not demos, not sponsored placements. If a tool is quietly costing you something, we say so. Subscribe, and you'll get the practical stuff without the hype. Now here's the self-test. Right now, before you do anything else today, I want you to try this. Think of the last complex professional question you handed to ChatGPT. Got it? Now ask yourself, did you write down your own answer first, even a rough one? Or did you go straight to the tool? If you went straight to the tool, that's not a failure. But I want you to notice the gap. That gap, repeated daily for 6 months, is exactly the mechanism we've been talking about. You just felt it. Here's another thing worth testing. Take a hard question from your actual work this week. Something with no obvious right answer. Set the 5-minute timer. Write your draft. Then open ChatGPT. Then, and this is the key part, compare your draft to what ChatGPT produced. Where do they overlap? Where do they diverge? The divergences are the most interesting data points because those are the places where your judgment adds something the tool can't. That's your moat. That's the thing clients are paying for. After trying the 5-minute draft rule for a week, what changed for you? Drop your answer below. Did your first draft end up being better than you expected? Worse? Did you find yourself resisting the timer? I want to know because the patterns in the answers actually shape what I test next. So let's talk about who this specifically affects and how to adjust your workflow based on your role. If you're a consultant or a strategist, first draft thinking is essentially your product. Clients aren't paying for research. They can do research. They're paying for your judgment under pressure. The 5-minute draft rule is non-negotiable for you. Use ChatGPT for research, synthesis, formatting. Never for the first judgment call. If you're a lawyer or a compliance professional, the stakes are different, but the mechanism is the same. Your ability to spot an issue in a contract or a brief before you research it is a trained instinct built from thousands of hours of practice. Let ChatGPT handle drafting, research, and formatting, but always read first. Form a view first, then use the tool to pressure test it. Using it the other way around means the tool is doing your professional judgment, and you are editing someone else's work. That's a very different skill, and it atrophies the one that made you good. If you're an analyst or a data professional, the risk shows up in hypothesis formation. The temptation is to ask ChatGPT what the data might mean before you formed your own hypothesis. That's the exact pattern that weakens the skill over time. Form your hypothesis first, even badly, then use the tool to challenge it. The challenge is more valuable than the initial answer anyway. If you're a writer or a creative professional, you probably already feel this most acutely. The blank page used to be uncomfortable but productive. Now it's just uncomfortable. The fix is the same. 5-minute draft, always, before you open any AI tool, even if the draft is terrible. Especially if the draft is terrible, because the struggle is the point. Pricing and tools, quickly. ChatGPT Pro runs $20 a month. For the use cases we've talked about, the free tier is sufficient for most professionals doing the 5-minute draft first, because you're not leaning on it for judgment anymore. You're using it for synthesis and drafting. If you do a lot of research-heavy work, Perplexity at $20 a month is actually stronger for sourced research, and I'll link both below. Notebook LM, which is free, is excellent for working inside your own documents without the offloading risk, because it can only reference what you've given it. So who buys, who waits, and who skips? Buy and change your workflow now if you're in a role where your judgment is your primary billable value and you've been using ChatGPT as your first stop on every hard question. The 5-minute draft rule costs you nothing except the discomfort of the first 2 weeks. The upside is keeping the skill that justifies your rate. Wait if you mostly use ChatGPT for formatting, summarization, and research tasks that don't require independent judgment. The atrophy effect is much weaker in pure task execution. You're using the tool correctly. Skip the concern entirely if you're using ChatGPT on tasks where the output is the goal, not the thinking. Writing marketing copy, generating image prompts, formatting data, answering FAQ-style questions. None of that is exercising the first draft thinking muscle in the first place, so there's nothing to atrophy. You're fine. The risk is narrow, but it lands exactly on the people for whom it's most expensive. If you want to go deeper on which AI tools actually strengthen professional judgment rather than replacing it, that breakdown is already up. It covers 3 tools built specifically to keep you in the reasoning loop rather than outside it. Link is in the description, and it's the logical next watch after this one. And one last question. Which role fits you? Consultant, lawyer, analyst, writer, something else? Drop it below, because the next deep dive I'm planning goes into role-specific AI workflows, and I want to build it around the actual mix of people watching this channel.